Well, I'm sure excited about this. Here we are, The Uncommon Truth, episode 1. And what we're going to talk about today with Tony Holbrook and Bob Embury, my good friends and co-hosts here today, is what and how are we going to deal with our current life circumstances that we're experiencing. So in our current world with COVID-19, the pandemic, the pending financial crisis, and overall a restricted lifestyle, what do you feel the biggest challenges we face today are? So, Tony, why don't you start with us today?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about this over the last couple of days. I think people have become soft to a certain extent. Us as humans, we have become soft, right? We know that if we get fired, we'll go find another job that we also do not like. We know that if we do not have food in our fridge, we can just comfortably drive to the store and go get it. And I think now in a situation where people are quarantined to their house and you're almost living in some of these surreal dreams where, like, when you walk out into public, there's gremlins coming after you everywhere. Like, this is reality and people don't know how to deal with that now. And so, I think that they need people will not know how to deal in this situation. The game has fundamentally changed, right? How you interact with people, even for how long this is going to be. If this was a 2-week span, it would be one thing. But this coronavirus and COVID epidemic, and even just the fear that it has caused around it, will change things permanently and monumentally for at least the next 6 to 12 months, in my estimations of things. So, I think that is people's kind of biggest fear, and their biggest challenge right now is that the rules of the game have changed. And I think that they do not know how to respond to that, because we have gotten so used to being soft. We have gotten so used to things being put on platters for us and things being made easy, that now when things are challenging, they don't know how to react. And now they're freaking out and going, what do I do? How do I respond to this thing? And now the true skills and the true experiences and the true the true needs that you have are starting to come out. I think people don't know how to respond.
I think you hit something there that really plucked the string for me, and that is, we have to expect the unexpected, right? And that we've got to just be aware that ultimately we're all accountable for our life, for our choices, for our interactions. And in this time of uncertainty and fear that we were basically talking about, how are we going to do that? How do we actually move forward in a way that we feel is the right way to go forward versus what everyone is telling us? So how are we going to do that and do it in a way that's still respecting and loving on people with respect, but also being true to who we are and what we believe is right in this circumstance for us? What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, especially, people get into their routines of life. We have routines of life, right? And we have habits and we have rituals that we enact. And what you guys are talking about is our routines have been significantly changed. So we're dealing with that change for sure. There's also, we've talked about in the past the concept of mindset, right? How we think about things. So one of the big challenges is how are you thinking about COVID-19 right now? Is this torturous? Is this boring for your new routine? Boring and torturous, labor intensive? Where you spend the whole day watching TV, or is this an opportunity for you to explore new things, to make new friends in new ways, to reconnect with people you haven't seen for a long time, right? In new ways. So there are challenging time. I like your comment about softness, Tony. People are so soft. I'd like to build on that by saying, I think that if when the pandemic hit and your life is really good, it's okay to be soft. Your life's really good. You got lots of money. It's not a big deal if you can't work for 6 or 8 months. That's one thing. But let's say your life wasn't so good. You were experiencing significant challenges in the routines of life when the pandemic hit. And now you're in a situation where you don't know about the future. Like, you're not even happy in the present. So what I learned, here's a truth that I learned many years ago. I think it was back in the 80s. I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Successful People. And one of the big concepts in his book, he done research with thousands and thousands of people on this, was that life is lived not in chunks of a year or so, they're lived in chunks of a week. And his concept was you wanted to put 7 days together, but at the end of the week, something happened. So if you want it to be more fit, as an example, right? It's a weekly thing. And you have to have the routines and rituals on a daily basis. You actually have to, if you planned out your week properly to be fit, Tony, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. But if you've got a good plan to be fit for a week, right? In the COVID fight, we can't go to the gym now. You can't blah, 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 right? But you can do other things. There's a great opportunity here to be the fittest you've ever been if this is a 3-month pandemic, right? But take it, Covey said you had to take it in sections of a week. The same with relationships in your life, the same with moving your career forward. It's measured in, if you leave it 2 weeks, if you leave it 3 weeks, if you leave it 4 weeks, you're throwing yourself under the bus. So I think that the other last thing I'd say, and I'd pass it back to you guys, is because the question is like, what are we doing right now? The challenges of life, right? Is that everybody's at a different stage and everybody has these different challenges. Even though we're all humans, we have the same challenges. It's because I'm a certain age, I've got a different challenge. I'm in a different part of section of my life. I'm going to have a different challenge than a 21-year-old perhaps, or a 30-year-old perhaps, blah, blah, blah. So the solutions to those challenges are complex. There's not a lot of sometimes there's easy answers, but sometimes they're not easy answers. And that's, again, an opportunity for us to reach out, talk to people about that sort of thing, seek wise counsel, and start to move, addressing those challenges, overcoming our fears, facing the fears, and recognizing the fears, facing the fears, and taking steps, taking action. Tony, there's nothing better than when you have a problem, a challenge, and you're frozen, to take some action. That makes you feel better. Take some action, I think. That's true. All right, boys, just agree or disagree. Fire away.
I agree. If you ever want to change your mindset, go do 20 burpees or something like that. Like that will definitely, that action will lead to some change.
So you really
have to physically move, right? When you're mentally constricted, right? When you're mentally, the best thing to do is go for a run, hit the gym, do the burpees. You physically engage yourself. It shakes that mind free. There's some truth for you, my friend.
Well, I want to just elaborate on this a little bit. This is something that, in the last 2 years, as Bob and Tony, you both know, I've kind of traveled all over the world learning all kinds of different practical psychology, for sake of a better word. And what we're really talking about is called a mindset triad, or our attitude triad. And it's involved with 3 things. And physiology is the base of that triangle that is there. And the easiest way to affect our body chemistry is a physical activity. Tony Robbins would say, make your move. Many other of the world's best thought leaders are talking about the science behind the body chemistry that happens from 20 burpees or 10 pull-ups or just going for a quick jog, run 10 jumping jacks. But physiology is really only one of it. It's the easiest one for us all to change. The other 2 elements of this triad is focus, because what we focus on is our thinking. That is, what we focus on, we find. It then gives us what we feel. That focus then grows, and then ultimately that's what we become. And we're talking about our attitude, and we're talking about our actions, because those focus, as you alluded to, Bob, then drives our rituals. And you show me a person that's fit, and I can tell you pretty accurately how often they're training. One person says they're fit, and you can tell their body is a once a week body. You can tell somebody who's a 4-day-a-week body. And then you can tell the elite athletes are an everyday body, that they're doing something active. So the focus on their outcomes and mindset and thinking, the physiology, and then the third component of that triad is our language, our self-talk. How are we talking? What are the thoughts that we're actually taking in will derive what comes out of our mouth. I heard a good book that says that our tongue shows the contents of our heart and where it's at. So those self-talks lead into what our beliefs are and our personal truths are. And we're in seeking of the uncommon truth. Well, if we're allowing those beliefs to drive our emotions because we've been focusing on something, we're focusing on the fact that, oh no, are we going to be able to get food? Or the toilet paper crisis that we went through, right? People, I'm going, you can use a cloth and wash it. But anyways, that's an aside. The real issue here is that those beliefs drive an emotion. The emotion then drove an action. Go hoard. And that action then leads to those results and the behavior. So that's just an example of it. And to put it in a more simplistic view of the mindset and our attitude triad is, it comes back to fear, as you've said. Fear is a false event or evidence appearing real. And that is a focus. Or is it words that we speak that are negative about us? Are we saying I am stupid instead of I am learning? Just a small shift in language changes our body, our mindset, and our overall state in attitude.
Yeah. So I like your comment on focus, Heath, because in the pandemic, right, where we had routines and we had focus. Now our days are quite different. If we don't have appropriate focuses, right?
Yeah.
Then, for instance, it's pretty easy to get dragged into Netflix being the focus. So, right. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, Netflix at all. But if that is your only focus for the day, then maybe this is not a great opportunity for you. You're not using this as an opportunity for growth, for change.
Well, you know what my father always used to say is, and this is it's funny how that goes. As you get older, you all of a sudden get what your father was saying. So one he used to always say is that there's this big pile of horse shit. And he'd say, let's grab a shovel. There's got to be a pony in here somewhere. It's our attitude. It's our focus on what the shit's happening. Is it good or is it bad? And ultimately, opportunity is always wrapped in challenge. The challenge itself is the wrapping that we get to peel away to find out the treasure inside. And that's hard. It's hard stuff to do, to control that mindset. What do you think, Tony?
No, I agree. It's, the word focus is kind of resonating with me right now. Like, I feel like if we're all in the same situation right now with COVID, where we're basically stuck at home. And if we weren't stuck at home because of the COVID thing, yet we were given the option to stay at home in our pajamas for 2 weeks and just watch Netflix with no other outward desires, like that wouldn't be a challenge for us. That would be called a vacation and something that I'm sure many of us would love to do, right? But instead our focus is on the restriction as opposed to the opportunity in a given time. Generally, I think as the nature of humans are, right? And I think if you change that focus into a question that's kind of around the realm of, if I were to lock you in a room for the next 2 weeks and ask you to learn as many digital skills, technical skills, connect with as many old friends as you could, whatever, fill in the blanks, switch that role from being how restricted you are to the opportunity that you've been given right now, it would change things, right? That would be the thing that sort of changes your mindset, and you look at this as a gift as opposed to a challenge. Like, look, I've been gifted now this period of time where I am locked in my house with my 3 children, right? I've spent more time with my 1.5-year-old son in the last week than I did in the last, 6 months because of it. And now I see it when I walk down my stairs from my morning commute to my office, you know, he's saying bye-bye to me and he's trying to hold my hand and stuff like that. And there's this connection that has formed that I would not have had the opportunity to otherwise do because of this time. Right. And now the opportunity is to sit here with you gentlemen and launch this. And I've got a number of things that I'm pursuing, but if I didn't have the distractions of the things going outside, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. And so I think us as humans, we need to change our focus to where the opportunity is and ask yourself the question of like, if you were given this 2-week time frame to go learn a skill that required you to stay locked up in your house for this 2 weeks, what things would you go after? What languages would you learn? What people would you just, you know, and everyone will have a different answer, but you have to change that focus.
Nice. So I think that summary of this as a really good point is changing our mindset, our attitude from a have to do it to I get to do it attitude. Mm-hmm. That is really well said, Tony and Bob. I appreciate it. So if this is the case and we're living with fear and uncertainty and we're realizing that we need to change our focus and look at the opportunity versus the challenge or the pain, what is the best way that you guys feel to defeat these old habits, these old attitudes, this old fear?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. Now, we talked before about the reality of our world, the reality of many people that we interact with, that people maybe are at certain sections of their life where even though they have time on their hands and they're fairly comfortable, they don't know which way to go. They're not sure how to grasp opportunity and or what opportunities are out there. I was just thinking that I was at a restaurant with my wife on one of our date nights last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, and we met this young server that came over to us, 23 years old, just a dynamo. And as we got to know him as the evening went on, you could tell that he's very skilled at his job. He'd been there since he was 17 years old, 23 years old right now, and really good at what he does, for sure. But as the evening wore on, it became fairly clear that maybe he was, I'm not sure was trapped in the job, but he was in the job, but maybe he had other dreams and aspirations. And though it's a nice restaurant, so he's making pretty good money being the server, right? He's 23 years old and time's ticking too. So I'm wondering, now that he's not serving anymore because that restaurant's closed, you know, what is he doing? Does he see the other opportunities, or is he just in his head because of that? Remember, he had that focus and self-talk, Heath. He's a server, right? He doesn't see himself as anything other than a server. So I think that it's that self-talk part. Am I capable of something else? Do I have a vision of what my skills really are? Do I know what my true talents are? Do I have a true calling? What is my purpose in life? These are the bigger questions. Am I lovable? Am I capable? These are some fundamental, basic questions that many people struggle with for many years, and maybe sometimes all their lives. So I think that asking those types of questions can be helpful. But again, reaching out, talking to other people. Simon, I think his name is Simon Sinek. Do you know him, Tony? Simon Sinek. He's he's kind of a guru in marketing. He said, if you want to know your true purpose in life, go to your best friend and ask him this question: why do you hang out with me, man? Like, why are you my friend? Yeah. And your friend will say to you, he said, what are you talking about? And I said, no. And you have to be diligent here. And you have to say, I need a list of why you spend time with me. Tell me about my character. Tell me about my personality. Tell me about why you spend time with me. And I need that list. I can't leave this conversation until I have that list. And I thought, man, that's some truth right there. That is what an amazing question to ask. It takes courage to do something like that, eh?
But yeah, it does. It does. It's also about intentionality.
I've asked that question, maybe not that directly, but to all my friends at some point in time, right? And I've got this list in my head of why I'm capable, of what my skills are, of why I'm lovable, right? Why my friendship is of value. So I've got those answers. So I'm okay with that question. But man, what a powerful question to ask if you're not sure. You look in the mirror and you think, if you're thinking the word loser, like I did, that was part of my 20s, right? Struggling, failure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I used to look in the mirror and go, loser, because that was the proof. The proof was right there. I had 100 things happen to me that weren't good. I probably had 10,000 things happen to me that were good, but the 100 things were like clouding my judgment, stopping me from moving ahead, creating massive amounts of fear in me. And all I could see was loser. I'd look at me and go, loser. So so I think, Tony, your point. This is an opportunity. It's a mindset.
Right. And I think
reach out.
It's what you do with that, I think, from that point, right? So you know, I would say you have to have those conversations, and you have to get to that point where at least the truth is apparent. And I don't know necessarily what the best way to defeat fear is, or to handle this fear as every single person, but I guess from my perspective, there's been two things that have helped me. Both of them kind of fall into the same realm of becoming uncomfortable, right? Any sort of fear comes with a level of uncomfort, right? It's realizing that what you're saying is untrue, or that you have fallen into a rut, and this waiter perhaps is missing his potential and that sort of thing. But you've got your comfort zone, and then you've got this area just sort of outside it that's your uncomfortable zone, right? And I think you have to be okay in times of fear. If you really want to overcome something, or if something is really limiting you, you have to get into that uncomfortable zone. And I think there's a physical way that manifests, and a sort of emotional or verbal, mental way that manifests. And I think that the physical way of doing it is really just sort of getting started in certain forms, right? And you think about it, people who have fears of snakes and spiders and things like that, they sort of like see one in the same room, and then they get comfortable with that for a month, and then they kind of gradually progress down that phase. You know, say if you're scared about getting on digital mediums and getting on camera and doing this sort of stuff, record yourself, watch yourself, delete the video, and be your own critique, but get comfortable with doing that. Make the uncomfortable comfortable. And in situations where that doesn't manifest physically, I think that then it's a conversation. It's having those uncomfortable conversations. One of the best leaders that I had ever worked for had a rule on his team, and he called it clearing exercises. And the idea is that between any number of people, whether it be two people in a sort of a one-on-one type forum, or a group of people, we would consciously call out that this is a clearing exercise. We are going to put dirty, nasty things on the table. But by putting all of this bacteria and this virus that is tension on the table, the light would shine on it, and it would kill the bacteria. Light has a beautiful way of doing that, and sun has a beautiful way of doing that. That once it's out in the open, everything is getting disinfected and cleared out and handled with. And at the very least, everything is out on the table. And even if that conversation means you doing it yourself and writing down all your faults on a book, and sitting there and talking to your significant other or your family member or somebody to hold you accountable, it's getting into that uncomfortable zone. And then once you're in that place, you're in a place where you can handle the fear, because you're sort of in parallel with it as opposed to underneath it. At least that's the way I've approached it.
That's well said.
Tony, and Heath, you right after this, but I just wanted to, before I forget, Tony, that's an uncommon truth, that uncomfortableness stops so many people from growing. And one of the truth about being uncomfortable is that's how you grow. That's how you develop. And awesome for you to point that out. That's an uncommon truth. It's like, I don't want to do that because it makes me feel uncomfortable. No, you got to do that, because that's how you're going to grow. You're going to grow in that area, in exponentially when you do that. You've got to do that. Absolutely. Just a quick story on that. I can remember I was in university and I was petrified of public speaking, and I had to do a 5-minute little public speaking class during this communication things to pass, right? And I did it on the golf swing. And Heath can attest that I'm a fantastic golfer. Just kidding.
Yes.
But I didn't sleep for 3 days before, and before the 5-minute talk on how to swing a golf club, I threw up before I went into the class to do my 5 minutes. I blanked out, did my 5 minutes, and passed the course. But 3 years later, 4 years later, I was speaking in front of groups of 700 to 1,500 people on stage for doing keynote speeches. So yeah, by the time I was 25, because I knew that was a huge fear that if to do what I needed to do, that had to be overcome. And so, but boy, talk about uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, if I may, I'm gonna try to summarize this all up into a uncommon truth statement for us as we finish off episode number 1. I think that where we're at is a few things. I want to just give a real something that's tangible, physical, that we for each of us and for our audience to know is that what can we do physically? There are 4 pillars of health I just want to speak to real quick, and that's going to lead back to our main topic. 1, the first pillar of health is breathing. You know, in 3 minutes, if you don't breathe, you're dead. So breathe. In this opportunity, take a few minutes every day to literally just sit and do some deep breathing. It will improve your mindset. 2, hydrate. If you don't drink water in 3 days, you're dead. And this is just the factor 3 that I learned, right? And I'm talking about water, not coffee, not that. You know, I'm just saying hydrate. It will change the way you feel. It will help you maintain healthy weight. It'll help in so many areas. And you can read up on these things and the sciences behind them all. The third thing is nutrition. Eat well. We're going to be forced to be eating at home now versus eating fast food. I think you're going to find that, oh my gosh, there's some really good food that we can eat. If you don't eat in 3 months, you're not around. So the point is that really try to pick on what you're putting into your body. This is something of proximity, right? What you put in dictates what comes out. Physical strength, muscle, fatigue are results of those 3 things. The last pillar of health, as we've already talked about quite a bit, is exercise. And exercise is combined with rest. You can't overtrain. I'm accused of doing that all the time, that I overdo it. I don't think I ever overdo it, do I, Bob? But anyways, the point is that to exercise, be active, do something every day. Doesn't have to be long, wherever you're at, but make sure you also allow yourself to rest. So those are the 4 pillars of health. And if you do that, that's a tangible that will really help you. The last thing in summary that I'd like to really try to do is back to the focus and mindset. In simple, our attitude determines our altitude. And we just got to remember, as Bob and Tony both said, to embrace our fears, because as soon as we say, I can't, we need to immediately write it down into an I must list, because that gives us power, that we can actually face those fears. So for me, the summary of today's discussion that we've had with these 2 fine gentlemen is really reminding me once again that focus and mindset need to be at the forefront, and that we need to change that focus and mindset to be opportunity orientated. Move from have to I get to do it. Whatever that is, that passion. This is the time and opportunity to really identify with who am I and what do I really like? What are my gifts? Focus on that. And from this is uncommon that we're actually in this circumstance. So let's use it and do some uncommon things. And I struggle with this because my own thoughts usually have an element of fear involved in it. And it takes my truth, the way I view myself, the way I view others. But that's a choice. And we can change in a snap. That's how Tony Robbins used to always say it. Change in a snap. So my challenge to myself and to everyone here today is we need to strive to be uncommon and embrace our uncertainty and fear, and look at today as an opportunity to grow, to give ourselves and others the best opportunity we can and ultimately to focus on the fact that we get to live our ideal life. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your input. I really want to thank for your wisdom and that you've shared with us all today. I want to thank all of you for watching, and just remember, hit that subscribe button. And I look forward to continuing this journey together as we seek to find the uncommon truth.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Heath.
everybody.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, guys.